everyone. I'm Dr. Olena Berezovska, and I continue to have podcasts with interesting, amazing people from around the world. And today's my guest, Ricky Higby, Dr. Ricky Higby from United States, and you know him already. Those who are watching me, watching our podcasts on YouTube channel and on the IPPA website. So you met Ricky before. So let me introduce Ricky. But hi, Ricky. Hi. Nice to see you. Okay. So Ricky Higby, it's a unique person because Ricky created his own program in positive psychology. It calls Be as Build, right? And
Correct.
he's a speaker, he's a coach, he works in resilience, and also he works in suicide prevention program. And it's very important subject. I would say it's extremely difficult topic to discuss and difficult topic to work with people. And in our last previous podcast, we were talking about mostly like positive psychology, like as is built. Today we're going to talk about suicide prevention. And I know, Ricky, you're a specialist, and I would say you are a brave person if you choose this field of work, because it's extremely complicated. Like it's not easy to see the results right away. At the same time, we try to prevent the death of people, and young people, old people, doesn't matter. So we try to prevent some tragic events. And why did you choose this direction in work with people, which is not actually a positive psychology itself, but at the same time, when we're talking about prevention, it's a positive step ahead, right? To save somebody's life. So why did you choose this, I would say, like complicated topic, not topic, but I mean this direction, this field in psychology?
Yeah, absolutely. So, unfortunately, the reason that I dove into this was because in 2014, I came home to find my then wife had chosen to take her life. So at that point, I had two young girls, and now their mother and my wife at the time was gone. So obviously it was a devastating time. So at that point is when I really started to get into the positive psychology, the resilience, and just my take on that was, okay, I don't ever want anybody else to go through something like this that I've had to go through, that my girls have had to go through. And at that point, I dove into the resilience, started speaking and teaching on that and learning about it first, obviously. And then that really led into the suicide prevention as well, because we look at the prevention side. That's really the goal. So even if you look at the positive psychology aspect, that's prevention, creating a culture where if feelings arise where I feel like I have to do self-harm, I have a culture, I have an environment around me where I can get that help. So what brought me into this realm was personal experience.
Wow. I think everyone has this experience, if not with like ourselves, but probably with family members, with some friends. And if I actually was going a little bit back in my past, try to remember what's happened to some people that were talking to me about the suicidal things. And I remember I also was like, I was thinking about suicides a couple of times, but I will talk a little bit later about this. But it's true, and I read the statistics. So we have an increase in suicidal events just because of this COVID and this 2021 years by 36%. And it's huge increase. And I agree with these numbers because I start hearing more about suicides, like, from people I know, and I see how depressed they are. And also, it's like in a statistic, we know that every 11 minutes we have deaths because of suicide. And we even don't count the thoughts of suicides. We that's what we can prevent, right? So we're just talking about like already the people died, and it's interesting. So when we're talking about like sign of some sign that telling us that something wrong with the person, what other signs are like what we should pay attention at?
Yeah, so first, if I could kind of comment back on that 1 in every 11 minutes, I think that number is just it's heartbreaking. To know that if me and you are having this discussion for an hour, there's potentially for 5 or 6 individuals to choose to take their life in that particular hour. So absolutely devastating there. And I just want to make sure that this new aspect of 988, at least in America, that the number 988, if you're in a position where you need to talk to somebody, that 988 number is one of those tools that we're able to use to be able to help out in that situation. When it comes to warning signs, oftentimes we'll put them in 2 categories of an immediate warning sign where, hey, they have the means and they have given you either in statement or in letter form or something like that. This is what I'm going to do at this point. They are acute. At that point, I need to make sure that as an observer, as a not bystander, but upstander, that I am taking them to the appropriate people, be it the emergency room or calling 988 and staying with them no matter what. On the other side, we have those early types of warning signs. And it could be something as simple as people giving their stuff away. I think that's a pretty common one that you hear all the time, that these things that they've had value in, they start to give those things away. And again, in and of itself, it may not be a thing, but I would rather ask the question, are you considering killing yourself? And the answer would be, well, absolutely not. What a crazy question. I'd rather ask that question and get that response than not ask the question and that actually be something that's going on there. Another interesting aspect of the early warning signs could be just general behavior change. Oftentimes, we've heard, well, if they are starting to act down or depressed or they want to be alone, those kind of things. But I like to also highlight the other side of that. In the work environment, if you have a worker who typically is an okay worker, but then all of a sudden something clicks and they are your super stellar worker, not saying that's a bad thing necessarily, but if we caveat that with behavior change, period. Again, there's something happening there that's different than the norm. Let us go ahead and just ask the question. Hey, is everything okay? Asking that question. And again, the response just might be, no, I'm fine. I finally found something that worked or whatever. Or, yeah, they might be having significant problems. So our ability, our willingness to step in there when we see something that's different so that those individuals have somebody to be able to walk through with. A big part of that comes from Dr. Joyner out of Florida State University. And his big word in his particular research was connectedness. That when it came to an individual having any kind of suicidal ideations, that connectedness wasn't necessarily there. And I found it interesting that he kind of broke it down into 3 particular areas. One was perceived burdensomeness, that when that individual sees themselves as a burden on somebody else, that my family doesn't like me, my boyfriend doesn't like me, et cetera, I'm a burden on them. Okay, that could be one of those signs, one of those signals to pay attention to. A second one under that connectedness is failed belongingness. When somebody doesn't feel part of something bigger, be it a team, be it a work team, be it a sports team, be it a church team, just again, being part of something bigger, then that could cause those particular feelings and thoughts of potential self-harm. And then the final one that he brought in there was acquired ability for lethality. Kurt Cobain, the lead singer of the alternative band Nirvana, this was a good example. He chose to take his life. But what they started to see towards that when that happened was he was supposedly afraid of needles and afraid of heights. And then you would start to see him to take those additional risks that normally he would not do. Again, we see a change in behavior causing us as the upstander to go ahead and have the willingness to step out and ask those questions. I mentioned the term, the distinction between upstander and bystander. So that really comes from Dr. Edwards out of the University of Kentucky, who created a program a while ago called Green Dot. It's now called Altruistic. And that whole process that she created, I thought was awesome. But she took us from, we don't just want to be that bystander who sees something, because a bystander doesn't do anything. They just observe. So going from the bystander to the upstander, somebody who actually is willing to do something, that's kind of where we want to be. And she breaks it down into 3 areas that if we see something going on there, I don't necessarily have to step in physically. I can, that is something that I can do, step up to them and say, hey, are you doing okay? If I don't feel comfortable with that, then that's okay. As long as I do something, and that something might be calling 911. That something might be reaching out to a friend of that individual's to say, hey, can you go ahead and check on these individuals? She called them the 3 Ds. But again, it's anything that we could do that's going to maybe break that thought process, at least for a second. So I could directly go in there, I could delegate it to somebody else, or I could distract, where I could have a conversation with them saying, hey, remember that time when we went to the coffee shop? Bringing up some kind of light. The band Switchfoot has a line where they say, the scar is where the light gets in. So bringing up that light moment that you have had with that individual, causing them in their potential gray cloud time, allowing them to see that little slice of light, that when you guys went and had dinner or whatever, could be that little thing to where they could say, okay, yeah, it's really not that bad. There is some good that is still here. But really, when it comes down to it, it is the choice of the individual, right? So it still really comes down to the choice of the individual. And there's a lot of other excellent research that goes into that piece as well.
I realize that in most cases, people who are thinking about suicide, they're silent in a way that they don't talk about this a lot until it comes to the moment when they're becoming like trying to materialize the thoughts. But usually they're silent. They feel like loneliness. They feel that people around would not understand their condition and choices. And as you said, probably the behavior, like the change in behavior would be number one, some kind of like signal, like, you know, the bell that something wrong going in this person's life, and probably we should interfere gently, offer support, offer some conversation, like even like, you know, having a cup of coffee or tea together in some cafe and talk, and never be indifferent. Because when I was thinking about my thoughts about, I had one attempt actually of suicide when I was very young, approximately 20 years old. I was a student of medical school, and I was in love, deeply in love with one man, and we broke up suddenly because we had different values in life, and for me it was very difficult to go through. So I decided, I was really upset, and I decided to to suicide, honestly. So I locked myself in a room, and my mom, she didn't know what's going on, but she found that something wrong because I'm not eating. I'm mostly in my room, not talking. So I took a knife, but the knife was very dull. I couldn't cut my skin. So that's why I was like upset that even I cannot find the knife to do it properly, right? So somehow I recovered, mostly because of mom, because my mom was the first one who was coming into the room and said, sweetheart, what's going on? Like, you know, maybe you should eat, whatever. And she knew that we split. And she called the guy and she said, she's not eating. I don't know what's going on. And then he called me and said, what's going on? What are you doing? Like, you're scaring your mom. And after that, I realized that I'm responsible in front of my mom because she already lost her child before because of disease. And that's why I was thinking what I'm doing. I mean, my mom will not survive, would not survive another death of the child. So that's stopped me from thinking, which is like my mom was helping me in this way. Like if she wouldn't knock the door or if she wouldn't come in my room, I don't know how it would end. but she felt as a mother that something wrong with me. Then the
Mhm.
second time I had, when I was already married and I lost my last child, so I had to go through abortion. I mean, like, removing this missed pregnancy. And I accepted this so badly that I couldn't tolerate anything. I was crying a lot and I was depressed. I didn't expect that I would be reacting this way, but the loss of this pregnancy was so important for me in a way, like, and I was thinking during this procedure, I almost died. I almost died. And I saw this light, I saw this like tunnel, and I was happy to go in another world. So when I woke up and recovered, then actually I didn't want to leave because I wanted to go back to this life. And again, only my two children, little children, saved me from this because I was depressed. I even didn't see the children at that time. But once I was looking how they were playing in front of me, and I said, "Oh my God, but heaven is not there. Heaven where your children are like playing. Heaven is here in front of you. So
Mm.
enjoy it. And they need you." So this is what wake up, like, that I have little kids, they need me as a mother. So I said, okay, no way, no way. I'm not going there back. I don't want to go back. But then actually when we moved to Canada with no money, we came with no money, only debts for tickets, no job. I couldn't find no job because I had you overeducated. There was like some kind of humiliation all the time. You overeducated to be a cleaner, to be a like to sell this coffee or whatever, because you have huge education, wonderful education. So you're overeducated, but you need money to feed the children, right? So I was, and plus I was abused by one of the relatives, and I was so abused that it was like Cinderella story all the time, like do this, do that, like, And so once I was so upset that I went outside and I said, I want to die. It was night, it was midnight. And I was walking around and said, why in Canada there is no crime? Can somebody like, stab me, or can somebody kill me? Like, so I'm going around and there was like empty streets. And even if I see somebody, they said, hi, I said, hi, and I worked for 2 hours looking for the problem. I wanted to be killed by someone.
Wow.
And then when I came back and I see the window of the room where my children were sleeping, I was looking in this room and said, if I die, they will suffer a lot because of these relatives, because of, like, I mean, what I'm doing, I mean, they need me. They need me. It doesn't matter. I just have to be strong. And I don't care what other people say or doing. And I make money, I make everything. Like, I mean, they need me in this moment because it's a new country for them, new language for them, everything new. And
Mm.
then I went inside. So,
Yeah.
and after that, I said, I'm a strong person. And I started helping other people. I'm a strong person. But these 3 moments of my life probably was the most terrible moments because I was alone and I had no support. But again, maybe my responsibility in front of other people made me strong, and I am strong. So whenever I see people around going through the most difficult times of their life, I always try to kind of offer my help. At least, like, you can talk, we can share some, like, let's go and have some coffee, let's travel somewhere. And this is how my like right now I even don't thinking about anything bad, but even if I'm in very difficult, let's say, situation, and I have a huge level of optimism and I have a huge level of hope, which is my character strengths, and
Mm.
1 in 5, the most strongest character strengths character. So this is who I am. But you see, why I'm sharing you, I usually don't share this. It's kind of like, it's not my weakness. It's actually my strength that I went through this. And but I always imagine people who going through some problems, and I hear sometimes from people, this is the end of my life. I don't know what to do. There is no future. And now, even with this war in Ukraine, you have no idea how many people had to be relocated. They have to fled to different countries to save the save the life of the children. And it's not easy to hear from people. How can you tell that everything will be fine if it's not fine? Like I lost my child, my relatives, I lost my husband, even some people lost children, you know. So this is a very difficult situation. And when you like, I admire that you talking about this and you're not afraid to talk to people. So because usually I don't know how to deal with this. We usually hear it, right? So I don't know, go to psychiatrist, don't go to specialist. It's easy to say go somewhere, you know, just push it away when we could offer our help differently. Like maybe if you want, I can help to find you somebody who can help you. Maybe we can go together to some specialist, right? But usually people say like, you know, go to psychiatrist, whatever. And as you said, people say, I'm not like, you know, crazy. Why should I go to psychiatrist? I'm just depressed. I have a lot of problems. You don't understand what kind of problems I have. Like I lost meaning in life, right? So what you're doing, it's amazing. Sorry
Thank
that I
you. And
shared
I
this
wanted to
long
say,
story.
what I want to say thank you for sharing, because that's a huge thing to be able to open up and to share. And it's so important, I think, for other people to be able to hear that. And some of the things that kind of popped out to me was relationships are always a big thing that kind of cause individuals to go down that road. Finances is another one. And you kind of experienced both of those. And I think we saw how important connectedness was. That hey, you mentioned your children, you mentioned your mom, and then we come into purpose.
The purpose, exactly.
For me, when I was dealing with that purpose piece was huge. My ability to grow through that post-traumatic growth, as opposed to just stress, was huge. Knowing that, hey, I have a reason to walk the planet. Cultivating that before anything had happened had kind of given me that strength. For me personally, knowing that as I walk with Christ, he's given me that strength to be able to walk through that. So having that purpose, knowing why I'm here, really gave me that particular strength. And then you brought up that as well, that the hope that of that being your character strength. When we, as you know, when we're operating in that, man, we're able to just kind of battle through things that if I'm not operating in that, I'm not able to. For me, my number one character strength was spirituality. So when I am kind of in that mindset, boom, you can kind of work through a lot of things. You mentioned the Ukraine, and that's just another crazy situation. How they seem, the Ukrainian individuals, the people as a whole, just seem like a very
solid.
I don't know, they're able to go through it.
Yes.
There's a quote in the movie that
they
says,
have a very
attitude reflects leadership.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So attitude reflects leadership. And when you look at the leader of his willingness, when you see the leader of the country just willing to stand out there in the middle of the battlefield, would you say that gives you strength seeing what he's doing or has done?
Exactly. I know Zelensky personally. We met when he was doing this show Quartal 95. It's because he was an actor, and I met him at that time, and he wasn't a president. And I was thinking what kind of president he could be, not because he's actor, but because Ronald Reagan, he was actor, right, in the United States, but he was quite a strong leader, as we know. But at the same time, like when I would just like, you know, I live in Canada. It's not that I indifferent. No, I'm always working with Ukrainian people, and it's kind of like my passion. But when the war became, I see absolutely different personality, like strong, like the person who stands up for the country and entire population. It doesn't matter how he was before, because I said it's very easy to discuss something in a kitchen on a sofa. Oh, maybe he has to do this, or maybe he has to do that. But he learned English. Because before he didn't speak English, but now he's fluent in English, just to have the ability to talk to other people in other leaders. So actually, I'm really support Zelensky in a way that, for me, he's a leader. He's a person who really takes care of the country that in a war. I don't know, like other president flew to Russia and with a lot of money, with billions of dollars stolen from government of Ukraine, Yanukovych, this, But I didn't want to talk about politics a lot, not because some people don't like when we start talking about politics, but what I want to say, if you have yes, you can see in somebody as a hero that can save you. You can see somebody who comes to help you. And by the way, about relation, like you said, I talked to some old people and I realized that even animals can save somebody's life, because animal, it's responsibility to take care of them, right? So you have to feed them, you have to walk outside like a dog, right? And animals take your negative energies. They are friends, silent friends that shows this love, unconditional love, like we say, right? And that's actually gives some also meaning in life, that I'm responsible for this cat, for this dog. What happened to them if I die? What happened to them? They will be like sent to where, like killed, or like put down, or probably going somewhere to some family. And are they going to be happy without me? No. And I think sometimes when people cannot have good relationship with other people, probably temporary, not like permanent, but sometimes something happened, you lost your friends, you lost like some relatives, and you feel alone. But animals also, it gives this responsibility and meaning in life. I have to feed this cat, I have to feed this dog, I have to give them the chance to be happy with me. And I think it's also, so any relationship with somebody, with someone, can change the perception of the suicidal thoughts, and switch the person from like negative thoughts to more positive thoughts, and even positive direction, and start changing the life and finding a way from this, like many people say, like exit condition or circumstances. I usually say, if you see the exit, that this is exit, it means an entrance too. So you came to this point somehow, then you have to, you can go out. It's just like in your mind that this is the end. But if you came in, then you can go back always. So you just start see the door somewhere else, but start looking the door you came through, right? So it's kind of a very touchy topic, and I know it's not easy to even talk, but I have a question. So what kind of simple techniques you use in your work, and then when you talk, let's say, to people, what usually you advise in a simple way, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say, that they can hear you. So what we can tell our viewers about this?
Yeah, so two things is kind of where I oftentimes go. And one of them is based off of Dr. Albert Ellis's work. And it's really ABC, that we have an activating event, we have a belief about that event, and there are consequences that come from that event. So when we react to something, we are responding to our brain's belief about that event. So if we had a breakup, it's not necessarily the breakup, but it's our perception of that breakup. And I think when we can understand that, hey, we control that. Viktor Frankl said, hey, we have a time between event and response. There's a space in there that we have control over. And with this ABC, it allows us to step back for a second and say, okay, I have control over what's going on in my head, so that I can respond to my belief about that, as opposed to just react. So being able to practice that skill, so that I'm good at it, and I'm not always just reacting like an animal as opposed to responding like a human. That is, I think, can be very beneficial. That I can see objectively the situation and then respond rationally. So that would be one, ABC. The other one I call it port. I don't call it port. I kind of stole it from somebody.
Mhm.
But port, when it comes to being in the moment at the time, pausing, taking a deep breath, observing how I'm feeling, reflecting on what's important right now, and then taking action about what's important right now. So if I do get into a financial issue and I think that I'm at that point where I think that I can't be on earth anymore. Well, if I could do something as simple as steer the ship into port, where I pause, take that breath. And again, the physiological science that goes into just that moment, just that thing right there. I think we may have talked about that before, but just that thing and I can feel it right now when I take that breath, man, the body kicks in and kind of does its thing, right? So I pause, I take that breath, I observe how I'm feeling. I'm feeling very overwhelmed because the bills are here and the income is only here. Okay, observing that, putting a name on it. Sure, it's there. Now just let it go. And then, okay, what can I do about it? Reflecting on that question, what's most important right now? Well, what's most important right now? Well, okay, maybe I need to find some other additional income. Maybe I need to be okay with working at McDonald's for the next 8 months so that I can have some extra income. And then that T of take action on whatever's most important. So those would be my two things. ABC, activating event, belief, and consequence. And then port, pause, observe, reflect, and take action.
It's thank you very much. It's a really active and helpful like techniques, because when I doing some lectures or presentations or some coaching, and I always help people and some stressed, or they have problems, even health problems, like they think, right? And I said, listen, like we already, like you here in listening to me for 30 minutes at least, right? If something bad happened during this 30 minutes, no. I said, you see, you pause. That means you can live at least for 30 minutes without even analyzing your problem or thinking about your problem. That's good that you listen to me another 30 minutes and then you could ask me some questions. So, and I said, that's very important, that when you analyze how often you occupied with something else except your thoughts. I mean, like you doing your job, or you have your hobby, or you working around, or you play with someone, or you listening to someone. It's always some break from negative thinking. And it shows you that half of the, and then you sleep. And I said, even if you don't sleep 8 hours, even if you say you have bad sleep, but at least you sleep for 2, 3, 5 hours. So now summarize this time. And then during this 24 hours per day, at least 12 hours have no problem. Nothing bad happened, right?
That's
So
great.
if you think you always, like people say, oh, I always have problems. It's so serious. It's like, I said, but look, during this 24 hours, there was no additional problem. There was nothing serious. So you could survive this like 12 hours, let's say, and you didn't realize that problem just exists in your mind. And then people say, yeah, you're right. Like, they start kind of talking like, so start looking for more hours to concentrate on something that brings you pleasure, or at least like motivates you, or maybe even like just like you forgot about your problem. That's it. Go and help other people, go read the book, do something, paint, whatever. And by the way, when there is this difficult moment in my life, I usually paint, and I have some very like dark painting, very kind of scary. And some people say, oh my God, it's scary. I was releasing my negative energy and putting on a canvas, just like, to get rid of what I don't want to have in my brain, in my mind, right? So, and it helps. So do something, like, do something, and then it can save you from next step in a like worse to worsen scenario,
Right.
And I think it's important to understand that we don't have 24 hours per day any problem. Like, I mean, we don't have like all hours problems, even if we sleep. And sometimes people say, oh, like I say, what do you know about like sleep? Like when you sleep, your body works automatically. You didn't die. your heart is beating automatically, you're breathing automatically. So you actually never thought that this is a privilege from life to give you a chance to relax and get some energy. So you kind of rely on automatic programs. So these programs are wonderful, good, because you just like wake up and you don't remember if you were like about your heart. Should I count if it's like beating every hour because I'm sleeping? No, of course not, right? And that's the moment, like I said, look, even during sleep, you have relief from your problem because you're sleeping. So anytime when you switch into something that takes away you from thinking about your problem, then it's much better than concentrating constantly and thinking that the problem would be solved just because you're thinking about the problem. And I think maybe this is a problem for those people who are thinking about suicide, because they constantly kind of thinking about bad things, and somehow we should redirect the thinking in other way, to something positive, some meaning, some relationship, something that has meaning for them, not just like one particular thing that makes them very unhappy. Yeah.
Right. And I think journaling can be really big in that aspect too. That if you are, so in sleep hygiene, we try to say, let's leave the bedroom just for two things: sleeping and sex. That's it. Get your TV out of there, get your phone out of there, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a space to go to just to let go. And if you are in that space where you're trying to go to sleep and your head is going a million miles an hour, that's where you keep that journal and just get it on paper so that you can go back and think about it later. But get it on paper now and put it to the side so that you can just take that breath, go to sleep, get that rest. And like you said, Lena, to allow that body do the miraculous things that the body does, start to rebuild itself, give you that fresh perspective. Yes, the sun will rise in the morning. That guarantee that we have, I think is amazing. But I think you're right. Getting us as individuals to realize that no, it's not all negative. There's positivity there too.
That our life is secured by nature. We have to understand that we have a lot of like processes that are automatic, and just like if we rely on our body, then we should realize that the problem could be solved itself when we allow the time and just do not push it, do not force it to be solved, because then we make mistake, we make it even worse. And it's important. And also, yes, I like the idea, like even people say, okay, I have this problem, and you said write it down. Okay, so by 10 p.m. I have this problem. Then in the morning you will be absolutely different. I realize that I'm thinking in the morning differently than in evening. In evening I'm tired, I'm like this, oh, and this bad, and that. So and sometimes my husband jokes like this, if you have a bad news to bring, tell me when I have a wonderful dinner, then I kind of relax, like, and this is not a bad news anymore. This is work too, like, when you had something like you enjoyed before, then the problem wouldn't be so big as you kind of woke up and then, oh, again. So we need to find some positive in our life, something positive, something meaningful, and step by step coming back to our normal life. And again, when you have a problem and you don't know how to solve it, don't worry, like, and because you don't know how to solve it, right? And if you have a problem and you know how to solve it, so don't worry, because you're gonna solve it. So it's kind of like specific like expression. But anyway, it's true that if you worry too much and you don't know how to solve the problem, you're not gonna solve the problem, because you're only asking yourself 100 questions, how you're gonna deal with it. And if you know how to deal with it, then I said, okay, next morning I'm gonna wake up and fresh, and then with good energy, I'm gonna solve this problem, right? So this is how we should live, more simple, I would say, not complicate too much with questions that we don't have answers to.
Right.
And our time is coming to the end. And Ricky, thank you very much for bringing this very complicated and necessary, I would say, topic. And this period of life when we went through a lot of kind of negative events for the last 3 years at least, right? Like entire population, not just like us personally, but we had to face a lot of negative events. And I hope I'll see you again for the next podcast, because people like our podcasts. And thank you very much for coming.
Yes, Olena, thank you for what you're doing and your will to kind of put yourself out there selflessly, altruistically to others. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye, Olena.